Mark, you can see the number of people in the room at the bottom of the panel. It says View Large Event Mode Attendees. Do you see that?
Yes.
And I'll just go over to LinkedIn and YouTube. Checking over there. Okay, on LinkedIn it still says the event will start soon, and on YouTube it says live.
Super.
YouTube is working.
Nice. Good.
LinkedIn is not working.
Hello to those of you who are just signing in. Thank you for being so prompt. We're going to be starting soon, but please tell us in the chat where you are logging in from. We'd love to know where you are and also what you do. We'll be starting momentarily.
Yeah, it's for whatever reason, it's not appearing on LinkedIn.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Karen. Stefan, wonderful. Kyla. Gerald, this is great. Fantastic. We're going around the world. Karen as well. And Caroline in Ireland. Lovely. Thank you so much. Keep sharing where you are. We'll be starting very soon.
I've just posted a note on LinkedIn, so if anyone is still on LinkedIn, hopefully they'll see it.
Okay.
Very strange.
Sonia is also in northern Spain. Fantastic. And then we've got Eva in Latvia. Gorgeous. And Cape Town, beautiful. South Africa represented. All right, I think it's time to get started, Eric. We've got some people signing in. What do you think, Eric? Pretty good?
Yeah, we can get started.
Fantastic. Hello, everyone. Welcome from wherever you're signing in from. This is a very special webinar to start off 2026, a yummy webinar of culinary heritage. My name is Mark Checkley. I'm from New Zealand, but now I'm based in French-speaking Switzerland, Lausanne. I'm a wine and food specialist and consultant, but also a storyteller and brand messaging specialist. And it's an honor to be here today to have a webinar that's covering a lot of topics of how we find balance. But let me give you the spiel of what we'll be covering. So tourism can play a powerful role in sustaining culinary traditions, bringing visibility and economic opportunity to food cultures around the world. But it can also place pressure on these traditions and cultures and shift control away from the communities behind them. These challenges sit at the heart of tourism and culinary heritage and finding the right balance or the equilibrium. And to discuss these topics, joining us today, firstly, is Janice Ruddock, Executive Director of Ontario Craft Cider, calling in from Ontario. Hello, good to see you, Janice.
It's great to see you, and it's wonderful to be here. And for us, and it is 10 o'clock in the morning. So
Okay,
great way to
brilliant.
start our day. Great way to start our day.
Exactly. And on the same time zone is Sean O'Rourke, who's president of Eat and Walkabout Tours. He's in Galicia in Spain. Lovely to have you here, Sean.
Hello, everyone.
And then slightly cooler and slightly further north, we have Nicholas Fjellström, who is the executive director of Culinary Heritage Network. He's in the south of Sweden. A little bit white, right, Nicholas?
It's pretty white today because we have full snowstorm. So today we can chew on the snow and melt some ice and get the best water ever in the world, I would say.
Oh, there you go. Fantastic. And then last but not least, of course, we have Eric Wolf, Executive Director of the World Food Travel Association in Spain and near Alicante. Is that right, Eric?
Yes, that's right.
Fantastic. Now, for all of you who are signing in, we still see more people tuning in, and thank you for telling us where you are. But please drop it into the questions, drop it into the chat, I should say, of where you're tuning in from. But we are going to have a Q&A session later. You will see that there are a few options along the top of your screen. The chat is for everyone, particularly if you have any technical issues or anything like that. But there's a Q&A option, which I urge you to put any pertinent questions related to the topics we cover today. So please look at that and we'll get back to it later on in the session. Lots to cover, of course. Firstly, the four of you, thank you again for being with us. And I want to bring a topic to ponder, some food for thought, as we should say. When we talk about culinary heritage, what do you think is most often misunderstood once tourism enters the picture? Maybe Janice, can you just give me a little brief thought of what you think to that?
So everybody knows that when they go on to a new destination, they have to eat and they have to do that. So, but there are the travelers that are really engaged in what that means, and they want the local flavor of that area, and they search and they make sure they're prepared in advance, and so information on the internet is their guide, or maybe word of mouth, or that sort of thing. So, nobody really goes on a on any type of vacation or getaway without thinking about the food part of it. It depends on how much research you're going to do into it, and that's the part of it where they start to intersect. And then it depends what your decision trees are on what you want as an experience. So I think it's very important for any destination, and that's why we're here today, is to ensure that they are aware of their culinary traditions. And I know that sounds very strange, but I don't think some destinations are aware of them. And they need to then and understand how that fits into their traveler. So I'm not sure if that answered your question, Mark, but I've got us started anyway. Give me a point for getting us
Again,
started.
it's definitely got me chewing around that theme and those topics that we're talking about. Sean, want to add on to that?
Yeah, well, for me, for example, a lot of people think Spain, they think culinary, they think paella, they think sangria. And of course, we try and dive deeper, get into the areas of like Galicia, where we are. Now you're here, it's a land of Albarino, seafood, the Mencía wines, to get them out of the stereotypical of the general idea of Spain and get regional, get in deep there to different areas, and to get them close to the locals. And seeing how it's made, that's the star of the tour, of course, the producers of the star. So before we even create an itinerary, we meet the producers, we see them, and we see what they do, and then we try and present it the best and transmit to our guests what the real culinary heritage is about.
Exactly. And just marry it and bring it together. Obviously, Nicholas, you're with the World Food Travel Association. So you see a lot of this in motion, a lot of what is misunderstood, but also what is easily grasped. What do you think as well in terms of that when tourism enters that picture?
I think the most important thing is to think about, as Janis also mentioned, everybody understands that a tourist always will eat at the place. And that is something actually we always have in our presentations when we are going around the world. That is something that some people actually forget very much, because 100% of them, they will eat from your plates at your place. And that's why also regarding that, specifically regarding culinary heritage in that abbreviation like we are talking about today, I will say like this. It's very important to understand that this is an experience that the tourists actually want to have, hopefully. And we should also look at it from an experience economy side, because if you don't have the right experience, you don't have a good experience at all. And that's why also food is such an important part of whole package of a place. And that is something that we always need to be reminded about, that food and drink in general, gastronomy or whatever we call it. It is that profound thing that actually are highlighting everything that your visitor will see and remember. And that is also what they want to share. That is something that is a remembrance that they always bring back home. And the food is one of the few things as well that we can do something about. Like now, I have a snowstorm home here in Sweden. It's not so fun to be here today as a tourist, but we also have tourists today. But if we serve something truly delicious, something from our local habits and everything, but the culture, the history, if that goes into it, yeah, but that is something we can change on. I can't change the weather, but I can change on the food.
That's good. Thank goodness for that.
Mm.
So, and that obviously brings round the idea of authenticity. That's a word we hear a lot about. It's sometimes bandied about as just a cliche, a catchphrase. But Nicholas, just to continue on from what you said, who should define what is authentic? And how can communities retain that authority and those decisions around authentic experiences?
Yeah, we can look at this from many sides or ways. And of course, something that is authentic, it's something that feels genuine. That is something that feels like it is something that comes from the heart. It is something that it's not staged. And I would say that is truly, truly important especially when we are presenting our culinary traditions, our culinary heritage in general, our local products. If you, for example, have a small local cheese producer, if they are accustomed to just go around in their nice white t-shirt and doing their things like they should do when they are doing it, that is something that is authentic. You are coming there as a visitor. If they stage up in old folklore, then it's staged for you. Then it's like going to theater. And in my experience, I can say it is popular to go to theater and to have cultural experiences, but not when it comes to food, because then it just feels like it's kind of fake, because it's the product, it's the process that you are out after. You don't want to see a hired-in girl or boy who are staging something just because I'm a stupid tourist, perhaps because I want to see something, or I perceive that it should be in a specific way. Nowadays, we must think in that way, that actually we should serve something that is truly genuine. And that is the products in themselves, I would say, and the customs of doing it. I mean, the cultural experience for it. And that's why also we need to think much more about this with experience economy, because then you can center stage it in different ways. And when you come to something, how can you actually see that this is genuine? One part of it is, of course, you can't overproduce it. You can't really, if you have X amount of persons who can join you at your cidery, for example, or your brewery, or your cheese factory, or it's cheese dairy. If you are only can have that, but then you should just adapt it to that as well. You need to be very genuine in everything. Just because you have so X amount of more clients you possibly could take, then you're selling out your soul, actually, because you can't mass produce these authentic, genuine things. And that is something also regarding when we are always saying, or not teaching, because we should never teach something, but saying or recommend, I would say it like that. When we are serving our culinary traditions, which sometimes can be very complex, we can take whatever examples of taste. It is something that is very special, truly, for me. But if Janice is trying the same thing, she will say, oh, perhaps not that so much. And that's why also we need to think in culinary experiences in general, we always need to think about sizing. And that goes down to actually that it's better to have a small degustation of it than serve the big plate of things. And that goes also hand in hand, that we want to preserve something and we are thinking much more sustainable in that way. And that also makes us genuine. So that is our authentic part. We don't need to stage it.
Yeah, and just leading on to that, Sean, I wanted to ask you, is what Nicholas brought up, is it better to be simple and genuine rather than be elaborate and not as authentic?
Well, I like showing both sides, but of course the genuine is what really hits it on the spot. And really for me, for example, I'm from Scottish heritage. My parents are both from Scotland. I wasn't born in a culinary heritage, so to speak. It was more whiskey and ale, but the food, a can of beans and a toast was as good for my dad. But coming here with my father-in-law, he really showed me what the value of good food culinary is and family food is. Because the first thing he'd do when we come back from a trip, he wouldn't say, "What did you see? What did you say? ¿Qué comiches? What did you eat? Tell me about the food. What did you eat here?" So it was always around the table. He wanted to know the flavors, even talking about the flavors. What does it taste like? What does it look like? So it was always around food. So Galicia really helped me with that, because with my in-laws and this whole culture is around the table. So I learned from the culture here, and now I try and transmit to my visitors here, because of course with the language barrier, sometimes it gets hard. So I transmit the true feeling of this area, and I try and do that for other areas as well. Just show them what the people of the land do, how they produce it from the roots up, and to show them the authentic. And that's the luxury nowadays. A lot of people that are used to going on spa holidays or golf, now they're trading up, saying, I want to see where this wine's made, how the terroir is, how the food's made, how these peppers are grown, get into an eco garden, figure out. So now we've based all our trips on going and meeting the producers and showing them that. That's the real luxury of nowadays, is getting them into how everything's made with love and from the roots.
Lovely. Thank you. Exactly. It's just that beautiful simplicity of being together, yes, and the flavors that bind. Definitely. Janice, I want to move over to you now, in your field and how you work with suppliers and also producers. What pressures do tourism and market and the market demands place on producers that are not always visible to outsiders?
That's a very good question, actually, Mark. And the fact is that producers are very, very proud of what they do. You have to remember that this is not craft foods or an international. These people are family recipes, family histories. They're very, very proud of what they're doing, and they've actually taken and they've opened up their business to have culinary tours, or tours, not doesn't have to be culinary tours, but tours to come in and visit their property and where they're producing. What I think is difficult is there's a mismatch of expectations. And the fact is that the tourist comes in and is thinking that they're going to something that's very buttoned down, very staged, in Nicholas, and they know what to expect. And they actually come into something that is not, that is authentic, that is very much of these people producing something that they truly love. And they expect that the tourists will come in and respect their area, and they will show respect and treat their area well. We have destinations here right now. Obviously, I represent cider producers. I work with cider producers in Ontario. I'm very proud to do so. And we have destinations that actually have to put security into their properties right now because they don't have the respect of the tourists coming in to that they're going on to personal property. They're wandering all over the place. They go in and they feel that it's their right to do so. And I think that's where there's a little bit of a mismatch here that we have to teach and help our tourists that they are going into working properties, family properties, and and if it doesn't work, if there is not respect, if there's too much money being budgeted for security, that property will not allow tourists to come in. It's just not worth it for them. And now the tourists, and 9 of the 10 of them, which are great, will have missed an opportunity to visit a very special property. So this is something that's really kind of close to our to what I'm doing. I'll just give you a brief example. We have
Please, yeah.
U pick farms, apple U pick farms. So I did it with my children a few years ago, more than a few, and they just loved it. They just thought it was great. They enjoyed going out to the orchard, picking their own apples, and it was a great day, a really nice outing we'd always look forward to in the fall. We have orchards now that have to put in security guards because people are taking apples, like they're taking and they're putting apples into baby carriages and trying to steal apples out of the apple orchard. And you know what? We've had so many orchards, you picks, closed down because it's just not worth it. It's not worth it
Mm,
to do that. And I really don't understand, or I don't have the magic bullet to say, what do you get through to the tourists to say, respect this or it will be gone? And I think that's we have to be very conscious of that. So
thank you. This element of security being installed and guests who are coming in and wanting more than what they've obviously paid for, or taking a bit more than what the experience is offered. Is this something that is more recent, or have you seen a certain spike in these incidents
there
with some of your
is
producer partners?
Yes, this past fall we had a real spike in it. It made it into the national papers of what was going on, and so it has definitely now. It has been going on for a while, but it did spike this year, and people do attribute it to certainly economics, inflation. Sorry with the cold. What is going on in the world right now? So, that is, unfortunately what the status is on that. But yes, to your question, it has increased.
No. No, thank you for sharing that. And it's obviously something that we've got to be aware of, because this industry, this pursuit of culinary heritage is fluid, and it's always going to have as many opportunities. There's also going to be challenges to navigate. So I appreciate that example. Um, just in terms of the early warning signs, obviously you've talked about something that's quite specific in terms of those guests, but what are the warning signs that growth is beginning to compromise traditional quality, you think?
I think it's a fact is that, again, owner operators that are mostly involved in this, and they cannot address the detail that got them to where they got to. So now all of a sudden, as they are expanding out and the people are leaving, stuff behind,
Mm,
it doesn't look as manicured as it once did. Not staged. We're not talking about staging it, but we're just talking about it just doesn't look as well kept as is because there hasn't been the time to devote to that. Product quality might decline, because there's just so many places to go, things to do, and all of a sudden now product quality, which again got them to where they are, is declining, and their products aren't where they are, and that has to be really looked at very seriously when that happens, because it's the product that got them there. And when you start, it is not, is not fair to the
Mm.
process, to your recipes, to the people who invested their heart and soul, to have that then decline at the base of over tourism or just not managing the numbers as well as they could. So that would be your first, definitely your first
Yeah.
symbol, something
Alert.
that's going on.
Of course. Kieran Laveau, I'm a UNESCO World Heritage Guide in the Vineyard Terraces here, and we've had to now had a second responsibility of being litter watchers. I know it sounds crazy, but UNESCO prides itself on access to places of heritage, and that's wonderful. But then there are people who come by, have a drink, have a wander, but leave their rubbish. And we've now, as guides, we've been asked to now be on the lookout. And it's a shame that we offer access, but as the more access we give, the winemakers need to be more on tenterhooks to know what's going on, because no one wants to find or see litter amongst their craft, their hard work. Those vines are not just going to repair on their own. So it is something we have to be conscious of, have to communicate, as you say, but also have to really be more focused on giving that advice to people to understand where they are, why they are, and what is important.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I've been
Sean,
to
yeah, oh, sorry,
experiences too.
Janice, yeah.
I was just
Go
to
on.
say, I'll just finish quickly. I've been to experiences where they have said right in the very first 2 minutes, this is a working business, respected as such. And I think
Good.
that has to be, I don't think people, a producer cannot be shy about that. They cannot be nice about it. They cannot be benevolent about it. They have to be
Yeah.
very transparent.
Yeah, they have to own that and make sure
Yeah.
it's shared. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Sean, obviously you're at the coalface a lot with your experiences, as you shared before. How do visitor expectations shape what is presented as local or traditional? A bit like what we discussed earlier.
Well, we've been lucky. A lot of our clients, when they've researched the type of tour that we do, they know it's going to be food intense, and they're foodies in a sense as well. But we always try to bring it up another level, to bring that closeness to the clients. Like, for example, I had a family that came off a cruise ship here in Vigo, and they were real foodies. They had young ones, about 10, 12, and they really get them into food when they're traveling, which is great to see from an American family. So they took them to this one little area where we had a market in this little fishing village. We saw all the fish and seafood, the kids asking all the different types and everything. And they weren't scared of seeing the heads on the fish and everything. They were right into it, which was great to see, because some families are like, oh, geez, that has a head. You know, it was kind of this thing. This family was
And has
great
eyes
to see
as
this.
well.
Yeah, it has eyes. And we got back to the house in a beautiful courtyard, and we were all on one big table. And the chef that we have there, she's a real mother type chef that learned from her grandmother all the recipes, and gets them cleaning the squids, the kids, and everything. We made a seafood rice dish all together, and I rolled the mariscos, they would call it here. And they were right in it, getting their hands all dirty and slimy, and they loved it. So this is where things that they said after all their travels of trips in France and everything, this was one of the most authentic, because they had their hands right on everything, learning all the recipes. And then they even sent me a photo after when they're back to the States, and they made their road de marisco, and they got all the locally sourced. So it was really nice to see that connection where they remember this and they bring home this recipe from here, from the coast, over there. So this is where we try and do that for the clients, and as well making all different types of recipes that they learn here, and they take our heritage over there and try it out with their friends and family, and have a Galician night or a Spanish night.
Beautiful. I mean, it's really just about marrying. So the experience is local, but the sharing of traditions is what they leave with. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, it carries on.
Yeah.
They take not just souvenirs with a fridge magnet. No, they take
Yeah.
a recipe, and they take a few kilos on in their belly, and that's all the memories are in their belly. That's the whole our concept is traveling with an appetite, so to speak.
Good. Arrive hungry.
Yeah, yeah, especially in this area,
yeah.
they're big eaters.
Of course. Yes, of course. And where do tour operators have the greatest responsibility, you think? And when should they step back or let it all just happen naturally?
What I see is size, of course, because we've seen now with the over tourism and with big groups and too many numbers in a group, and it just dilutes the whole experience. I mean, for us especially, it's either private small groups or up to 12 in a group. And if I get an operator saying, look, well, can you do that same experience, but for 50 people or 40 people, I'd say, we can do it. We split it apart in groups of 12 and we stagger it, or we go to different places depending on what the type of tour is. So we still offer the quality that we want our brand behind, but not diluting it and making it invasive into a market. You can't go in there with 50 people, the locals are buying, you're on top of all that. No. And then try and keep respect as well. I have to tell the clients as well, stay back a little bit. People are buying, you know, observe and enjoy, but we're not really going to the market to buy. So we've got to let the people buy and purchase and then be a part of the whole atmosphere. So basically it's educating on size, keep it small and special.
Yep, that's nice. Exactly what Nicholas said earlier, you know, about it's not on show. You know, this is
Yeah,
actual
exactly.
living heritage. It's not just put on as a performance and then they all go and have a drink of coffee afterwards after you leave. You know, so it's always got to be, you've got to speak authentically, act authentically to have the ultimate effect and the ultimate memory for guests and clients. Thank you. Eric, I wanted to bring you in because obviously from your work, you see a lot and experience a lot and talk to a lot of people in heritage, culinary, and historic parts of the food world. From your work in the destinations globally, where do you often most see the balance between promotion and protection going wrong?
Interesting question. Uh, I would say that it goes wrong more often than goes right. You have destination marketers who don't necessarily fully understand what culinary heritage means, or even culinary tourism, where they just think it's about putting together lists of restaurants, or it's about getting people into the restaurants, even chain restaurants. And so there's that hurdle. And if that hurdle has finally been gone over and people get it, then we have to fight the battle of the over tourism, because more is always better, right? We must have more tourists. And when you have 500 people waiting to get into a restaurant or a bar or something, or there's a restaurant area, walking area with a lot of restaurants, and it's packed like the Las Ramblas in Barcelona, you know, that's not a great experience for anyone. The restaurants love it because they're full and they're making lots of money, but you know, who wants to wait 2 hours to get into a restaurant and so on? So I think where it works best is in situations like Sean was saying, where you have smaller numbers, where you're able to have smaller numbers. And where I've seen more success has been in secondary and tertiary destinations, smaller destinations, rural destinations, especially. Big cities don't need help with marketing. They're not going to give you any marketing money. They don't want to you know, they don't want the small fries. They, you know, just keep them coming, keep the hotels full, keep people spending. That's what they want. But it's the small destinations that travelers, culinary travelers, are explorers, and we'd like to get off the beaten path, but we have a really hard time finding out how to get onto that be off the path there. We don't know which path to take, which road to take to get there. Especially living in a place like Spain, where let's say someone doesn't speak the language, right? And then you have the mix of different languages. So in Spain, you can have Galician, Basque, Catalan, Valenciano, and Castilian Spanish all going on. And in some areas, you can have Basque here in 30 minutes. You'll have Catalan, but there's also Spanish, and no one speaks English. And you know, even in Valenciano, they spell things differently. So I live near a town called Jalon, but it's written Xalo. That doesn't even look like Jalon, right? And so people have a hard time finding these places, and there's no signage. But that's also part of the charm. You know, they're hard to get to, they're hard to discover, but there's not the volume. So you'll have very few businesses operating in these areas, or they still will operate under the old rules. Like we have our siestas in the afternoon. You know, good luck finding a bank, or good luck finding a tobacco store or something. Oftentimes the restaurants will be open at the time, because that's a time when people eat. But I think there's certain destinations that I've observed over time that do seem to understand what culinary heritage is, and they also seem to understand about how to package it in a way that is digestible by food lovers. And I have to look at places like Ireland. I see Ireland doing a lot of things right, and where Ireland was doing a lot of things right was mostly a few years ago under the leadership of John Mulcahy when he was working with Fell to Ireland. There were a lot of programs in place that were really setting the right tone for the country, for the republic. Really, like the Irish food ambassadors. You had about 25 different people all around the country, well positioned. You had the different routes. They had the wild Atlantic routes and so on. And the marketing was really good quality. People were able to find their way off the beaten path, and it was really well done. And then John retired, and then we had the pandemic, and it's kind of piecemealed after that. There was other destinations like Sweden has shown some tendency in that direction, but then they've had changes of government and things that have not necessarily gone that way. I think the biggest challenge is that governments are in place usually for 3 or 4 years, and then they change. New governors, new mayors, new ministers, and all of the work that has been done that's taken 3 or 4 years to put in place or just to get ready to put in place. Then someone new comes in and says, "No, we're going to do something else," and then all of that foundation that you built has been whisked away. And that's what happened in Sweden in 2013 when they changed governments. They had Sweden, the New Food Nation program, ready to go, and it was outstanding. It was so well thought out and constructed. And then new government, no, not a priority. So it's it's a hard question to answer.
Yeah, well, you attempted. So well done. I want to bring in that beautiful word, sustainability, Eric. We hear it a lot in what we do and how it's being communicated. Is that something now all businesses have to have front and center, and also to communicate openly and as part of their story, the sustainability, or is it something that is shared organically when they reach these destinations and experiences?
Sustainability, as we as tourism professionals would define it, but we understand what it is. All of us understand what it is. Everybody in the webinar today, all of our guests understand, I hope, what sustainability is. And we understand that this needs to be the foundation of how a business operates. But that's not always the case. And you have to remember that a lot of these people they were brought up with things like you go to the grocery store, you get a bag, you have a plastic straw in your drink, you put your trash in the trash can, you don't think about recycling it, and that there's 2 or 3 generations of behavior that needs to be unlearned. So it's going to take a while for all of this to change, but I think that because people still love to travel and travel is a pleasurable thing, and it also opens people's minds, but tourists need to be taught a new way to travel. And I don't really like the word sustainability because it's overused, it's abused, and it also, I think there's a lot of room for misinterpretation and greenwashing when you talk about sustainability. So many businesses I've seen that have claimed it, and I look at I peel back the layer, and it's like, no, you're not sustainable at all. Or I'll go to a restaurant and they've served me with a plastic straw, and I give it back to the waiter or waitress, and I said, I don't need this. I order another drink, and I say, no straw, please, and it comes with another straw. That really, really makes me mad. That they just don't get it. They don't think. And I like to use the word responsible instead, because I think we all have a responsibility either as the hosts in the destination or as the tourists ourselves. We are coming somewhere to really, to be quite crass about it, to take advantage of that destination. We're there to enjoy it. We're there to use it. We're there to walk on the old stones and wear them down. We're there to leave money behind. We're there to leave trash behind. That's the ugly side of tourism, but this is still nevertheless. But what if tourists could be taught to recycle the plastic water bottles, to take the I was in Nepal, they didn't recycle. They don't recycle there. And I took my trash with me back to the UK where I was living at the time. And I was sorting my trash in the living room of my house, and I thought, I am like the biggest travel nerd out alive. This is crazy that I brought my trash. And then you think, well, what about the carbon footprint of taking the trash with you back on the plane? I don't
Of
know.
course. Mm.
Another big
No,
big problem.
thank you.
Big
No,
question.
thank you. It is something that we can obviously discuss more about in the future. But Nicholas, before we move on to some final thoughts, do you have some comments about this? How sustainability is being communicated with you and the association and its partners?
Yeah, then I can start like this. You know what the most sustainable thing regarding traveling is? That you don't travel at
Tell
all.
me.
That's the most, that's very terrible.
Exactly.
That is the most sustainable you can do. But that is not what we are striving after, and that is not what we are communicating. But that's why also I think Eric is very pointed very rightly that we can't only think about that buzzword, but that buzzword in Nordic countries, for example, I can say that sustainable, that is out term, that is already outdated. In our countries, everything is about being regenerative. Because when you are regenerative, then you already have the sustainability implemented into your thoughts and your actions. And that's why also, because when we see a tourist coming to our places, they should actually give back more to us than we are giving them. That is the regenerative tourism, or the thought of how tourism actually should be. And that's why also all places, of course, has a story. And that is also, a lot of it is about communication. How can you communicate the right side of the story? What is the right, how you say, now my English is too bad. But how you can
Intention. Was
actually
it the best
communicate.
intention?
Yeah, exactly. How you can present it to your audience. And that is also a part of, as Eric said, we need to teach our tourists a little bit how they in future and now should act. But then we also need to be very good, role models by ourselves. Then we need to do exactly the same thing. When we have a business entrepreneur who are actually doing this, one of the first things that we are communicating always, of course, use your local food products. That is the first step to be very sustainable. Because first of all, not only sustainable for the green thing, but also for economical sustainability of your area. And that second thing that actually comes then, it's of course that then everything becomes seasonality. Everything is seasonal. Because of course, I can't serve now fresh something green here in Sweden, but I can have it stored since before, and I don't need to buy tomatoes from Spain. I'm sorry for Sean, you're in Spain now, but I don't need to buy tomatoes from Spain. I can actually have them, jarred, or I can do something else, our own local tomatoes. It's just that I need to adapt everything to the season of what it is. And that is also a part of this, of being authentic, because that is how our history was. Because when we were producing food for a whole year beforehand. Before we could import everything, then we needed to actually eat every day during winter as well. That meant that we needed to do something else from a sustainable way. So that is how you can say or interpret actually seasonality, sustainability. I would pronounce it like regenerative instead, because then you as a tourist as well, you are coming back to your home and you have good emotions with you. You have been investing in the place you have been leaving a very good footprint there because of your actions that you actually took place. That's why I would just like to, actually we have some now, it's visible, I think, hopefully, because this is also, that's why we are doing a lot of different projects, for example. And this one, it's how you should actually developing and designing culinary tourist services. And this is for the local food producers. But then, as Eric also was into, you also need to actually have a full leaflet for those who are the operators or those who are marketing this. So that's why it's very important to actually think, in different sectors regarding this, because it's not enough that we are good on doing one specific thing towards the market. We also need to think on the other way of it. And all goes hand in hand. And that is something also why some destinations, they actually are so strong. It is because everybody have learned to cooperate. And that is like the core message of everything. You need to cooperate. Within tourism, you need to have everything at place. And after that, you can sell your destination or your product or whatever it is.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Nicholas. Janice, I'm going to ask you a question looking forward. But before I do that, I just want to reach out to all our guests signing in or tuning in to today. Please drop your questions into the Q&A if you can. It'd be great. I can see them all at once. I've got a couple of questions in the chat, but I know Stephanie's made an observation there as well. Thank you, Stephanie. But if you've got any questions, please drop it into the Q&A and I will pull them out in a couple of minutes. But Janice, I wanted to ask you, the soothsayer, the future gazer that you are, if a destination wanted to do better in the next 12 months, what is one practical step they could take, you think?
Oh, wow. If I was a good soothsayer, I definitely, it's pretty hard these days to be good at that. Um, I think I go back to what Eric said, and I echo what Karen just put in the chat too. They could listen to Eric all
Yeah.
day. I think one of the things is I think we really have to educate the tourist. Coming in and making the statements, that you're going to have authentic experiences. These are owner operated. Um, Please have respect for what you're doing and what you're doing. Now, as far as the destination goes, what they should be doing, I think it's really it's a real difficult because there's so many fronts right now out there. There's over tourism. So, but Dustin, I worked for a DMO, and I know that that's how you're evaluated is to make sure you get as many people walking in as you possibly can. So that's never in your measurable objectives is to go and put tourism down to manageable levels. I think it is training and communication with the businesses that are in your area, getting to know them extremely well. Um, you know, I think if you could do marketing, I don't sure if you guys ever see, probably not, but if you see Newfoundland, I know there are some Canadians on the call. If you see Newfoundland advertisements, which is a province in Canada, they go completely opposite to what everybody's doing and saying, hey, the beauty of our destination is talking to real people. I think if you've got that to sell, I think that's something that you would look at these days because there is so much staging and inauthenticity. And I think if you can make your destination as real as possible, go online, check out what Newfoundland has done, because I think that is speaking to a lot of people that they do truly want to get back to what has meaning in life. And if you have that as a destination, don't stage it. If it's not there, Las Vegas can't do it. There's no way Las Vegas is ever going to do it. But if you have a small, you know, area that you're there with, or you feel that you can do it with and be authentic and not stage it, I think that's what travelers are really looking for. And if they want to go to Vegas and Disney, well, have at her. Like, go for
Let
it.
them do it.
Let
Yeah.
them do it. But don't market yourself as I've seen destinations like compare themselves that they're the Vegas of the North or whatever they are. And you're like, don't do that unless
No.
that's where you want to put yourself. Like if that's where you want, great. So Kyla, and so Kyle, I know where she is actually, and
Okay.
bike pass, farms, restaurants. They've got it right there, right? Because she's right next door to Niagara Falls, and there's no place more over tourist right now than Niagara Falls. Um, So definitely those are good examples, if you want to have a look at that. If for the what,
Thank
in
you.
my opinion,
Thank you, Janice.
what we're going
Yeah.
on the future.
Could I
Thank
just
you.
add
And
one thing really quickly?
yes, Eric,
I
please.
promise to
Yeah.
be quite quick. This kind of connects to what we were talking about before, but also listening to Janice, which I could listen to Janice speak all day, but Janice and I knew each other first when she was at Taste of Nova Scotia in the province of Nova Scotia. And when she was running that organization, the work that was put out by her office was just exemplary. It was outstanding. The First of all, you have a great province to promote, great resources, wonderful wines, wonderful food, seafood, lobster, the works, right? But not really well known. But the way they packaged and put that together, and it was done in a very responsible way. It was showing, hey, we've got this, but it's not Disneyland, and it was also positioned the kind of way that attracted curious travelers. And if I had to talk about best practices, I mean, I gave an example from Sweden, I gave an example from Ireland. Saudi Arabia right now is also doing wonderful stuff, but they're heading a little bit more into the gourmet direction, and they also have a huge budget, which puts them in a different category. But I think what Janice's work at Taste of Nova Scotia also is up there in one of the top 10 examples I've seen in my career of an organization with the leader doing things absolutely right. And can we just bring it back, Janice?
Thank you. That's so kind. But but what Eric says is so you have Nova Scotia, which has the asset, and
Mm,
there was the line drawn in the sand. Do you want to go to be something that you're not, or do you stick with who you are? And that was, and Stephanie from Quebec, she makes a very good point, and that is the challenge with DMOs is that they have to promote their members. That's where their income comes from. It comes from membership. So it's pretty hard to go out and brand that when you have your members paying on that. But we've kind of found a little bit of a secret way we did that with Taste of Nova Scotia, where we did convince that we were branding Taste of Nova Scotia versus our members, but our members backfilled that brand, and that's what you need is to have the right members backfilling, not just for the source of income. And a lot of DMOs have to go down that road. They have to have that source of income. So.
thank you. I've got a question, or at least a statement from Stephanie that I wanted to throw to you, Sean. I'll just read it, what she wrote. The challenge with DMOs is that most of them want to promote their members, not the culinary heritage at first. There is an education to do to make them understand the value of small groups. Now, obviously, your example you said about you take certain group sizes. Do you have a bit of a wrestling match on a regular basis in trying to convey the specific nature and also the care taken when smaller groups uh, are the focus? Just unmute yourself there, Sean. I'm sorry. Oops.
Let's
I
see.
can hear you now. Yep,
Hear me
I can
now?
hear you. Yep,
Okay.
take it
I
away.
put it on mute there for a second and then I didn't take it off. Okay, so we've been doing another destination, spreading our wings a little bit to other areas about with our philosophy. So my wife and I went to the Madeira Islands, Madeira in Portugal, beautiful islands, right? And destinations subtropical, beautiful. And of course, they have lots of numbers of tourists that go there. And now they're having a problem to try and control the number of tourists. So what I decided to do is to create a culinary program, a food tour, basically multi-day tour of the whole island. I met with all local producers that were in the middle of the hills that no one knew about. A lady that's recovering all soup recipes that were lost through generations in Madeira. And now we actually collaborate with her where they actually do a day where they have a soup demo and they do a soup making and learn about the cultural history and to do things that are not your typical Instagram photo going up above the clouds and taking a photo of the sunrise, which is beautiful. But the problem is now there's so many cars, there's so many people that you have to look for other options. So when I spoke to the tourism in Madeira as well, I said, look, you've got such a rich cultural heritage and culinary heritage. I'm doing these sort of things. And a lot of the stuff that I was doing, they didn't even know who they were, what they did. And I was educating them on a different side of tourism because I come with a different angle and a different vision of how to promote Madeira.
Yep. So it's just, again, just being able to convey the story, convey the authenticity, and to be honest about it. You know, honesty is really what
Definitely.
consumers now want,
Yes.
and a little bit of a surprise as well. You know, that
Definitely.
little
Don't
bit
tell
of
them everything
touch
on your
of,
website or your brochure. You
exactly,
have to
no
keep things
secret,
hidden.
exactly, not all your secret sauce.
No.
We've got one call to action to ask everybody to do in a moment, but I just before we as we wrap up, I wanted to ask each of you, starting with Nicholas, what gives you cautious optimism? What's one thing that you have that you're happy about with the future of culinary heritage? Just something brief, a nugget of optimism.
I'm very optimistic, and we can see it in reality actually, that more and more people pay attention to actually what they are eating. And we can see actually from travelers all over the world, when we are going by myself or when we have groups or whatever it is, people are more reflective of what they actually are going into. They are seeing the experiences actually as an experience to actually eat and drink something truly special that gives them. I can take a nice example. For example, we have in Sweden something called fermented herring, and I can promise you it's not so smelly. It's very smelly, but it's not smelling so good. But we
Yes,
can
I've had
feel
it.
each time I go somewhere, everybody's asking about this true culinary tradition from Sweden. And I say to them that it's wonderful and it's very tasty if you just eat it in the right way. Yes, but then you must teach us, you must try it. And that there it comes down to this with sizing again. It's super tasty if you do it in the right way, if you're like having this small bite of it. And I can see that actually that is my hope for future. People are very,
Right.
very interested, and that goes very much thanks to social media and that people actually know about other cultures in a totally another way today. It's all about presentation, communication, but people are getting actually more and more interested of it. And there it comes also the economical incentives, because that
Yep.
means those traditions that are very special, they also have an economical factor that actually means that these local food producers, they can do this special cheese or this special wine or this special whatever it is, or fermented herring. They can actually do it and sell it out, and it is only this batch of it, and that's fine. And that means actually that the economy of it is also rising, because what means that all fermented herring now was sold out in 2 weeks for this year, it means actually perhaps you have an edge of the price for next year,
Of
because
course. Yeah.
it's not a mass quantity thing that you're eating or doing. It is an experience that you are having.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicholas. And also thanks for posting those studies and other links in the chat. Really appreciate it. Janice, just
Yeah, and
briefly, what's yep.
sorry, I can just really recommend it. Some of it for us who are in this business, it's super basic. But we
Thank
need
you.
to think about that it is something that we should teach in a wider perspective. And that's why also we
Holistic.
had these
Yeah.
projects that we are doing. They are really for educating local food producers, in this case, to actually showcase their things and see the possibilities of taking a small group to your factory to do something special for them.
Of course.
So
Thank you.
that's it.
Janice, what about your little optimistic, bright nugget? That you're
We're very
thinking of?
optimistic in Canada, actually, I
Great.
have to say. And we have, our neighbor to the south to thank for that, because as they threaten to make us sorry, Eric, the 51st state, we have now had our people kind of stop and go, wait a minute, no, no,
Mhm.
no, no, we don't. We love Canada. We think Canada's amazing. And so now they're staying in the country. And now they're starting to do, look at the products that we make. We have all these amazing beverages and foods and cheeses, and we are a very cool country, and our own people are starting to realize that. So, not that we
Just a
recommend
nice
how
little reminder.
yeah, it was a great reminder. Not that I recommend how we got there, but it's certainly,
No,
we have a certainly evolving national pride, and that's really cool to see.
that's lovely to see. Thank you for that, Sean. Just briefly, what would be your little thing of optimism? Oops, and muted again.
Hear me now. I'm having a little
Back on, back on.
so-
Yes.
Okay, optimistic that I think there are small areas like where we are and where I've been approaching about the tourism. They're optimistic. And for me, is that they've got an open mind. They're thinking of new things outside of the typical tourism and doing things that are more authentic, which is good to have a stage that are listening to us. Whereas before, when I first came here in 1999, it was like what I was doing, because I've been doing food culinary and more immersive tours since then. And it was before, it was like, this is too hard to sell. We need to make it more simple. And but really it was simple. But it was too simple for them. And now it's come back to the simplicity. And that's where I think it's optimistic that now it's more where the tourism's going. It's making it this way. And really it's something that areas have been doing for their whole life.
Thank you. No, it's good. And being authentic and having your own story and blending it
story
through
behind
in
it,
everything you
definitely.
do makes it all the more special and unique. I've just posted into the chat. And for those of you who are tuning in on our different platforms, it is www.jointasteofplace.org. And the reason why I would love you, or we would love you, to head to that site is because we have a declaration, and we'd love for you to sign up on the declaration along the top of the website. Sign the declaration. You can join there, and of course, instill your commitment to culinary heritage. It's all there for you to read, and we'd really love to see you joining up following this webinar. And of course, there will be more such webinars coming up. We'll touch on different themes, different topics, and also speak to many different professionals and specialists in this very yummy industry, very yummy world that we live in of culinary heritage. So thank you so much. Again, please, a round of a virtual applause for Sean, Nicholas, Janice, and Eric. Please, again, reach out with any other questions. Sign the declaration at Taste of Place. Find out more about what it's about, but also what its story is and its goals. My name is Mark Checkley, and we will see you next time. And all the best, and have a tasty week.
All
Thank
right,
you, everyone.
you.
Turn off the stream here.